If you've recently watched a DC movie or played a DC video game and thought, damn, this sucks, I could do better, it's too bad that I don't own the rights to DC characters, then I have good news for you. That won't be the case for much longer, because pretty soon it will have been over 95 years since the first DC comics were published, and those characters will begin entering the public domain. When this happens, DC characters will now be legally viewed in the same way as characters like Dracula, King Arthur, and various mythologies. They will be free for anyone to use in their creative works. There are limits though. For example, in 10 years, you won't be able to make a story where Red Hood asks Cyborg to make a portal to Apocalypse so he can shoot Darkseid in the head. You can't make a sequel cartoon to Batman the Animated Series or Justice League Unlimited. And no, you cannot revive the Snyderverse. Only the versions of characters that were released 95 years ago are up for grabs. Meaning you will specifically get this Superman, this Batman, and this Wonder Woman, with these specific outfits. But, looking at just what characters we will get year by year, I think there is a lot of potential in making media out of the parts of DC that will become public domain. If you want to know when a character will become public domain, simply take a character's debut year and add 95. The first wave of characters comes in 2033, just 8 years away. And in 10 years, things really start to pick up with potential characters to use. So let's take a look at exactly what characters will arrive in the public domain in the near future. I'm not going to be covering every character that released ever, just the ones that I think are most noteworthy for the next couple years. 2033 kicks off the start of heroes entering the public domain with Superman. With him comes his supporting cast, Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane. Batman follows in 2034, along with Commissioner Gordon and Ultra Human Knight, a notable Superman villain. 2035, oh boy, this is where things start to get interesting. Robin joins up with Batman, along with many of Batman's notable rogues, including Catwoman, Clayface, and Hugo Strange. Wonder Woman also makes her debut. In fact, there are a lot of heroes that showed up in the year of 1940. The original Flash Jay Garrick and Green Lantern Alan Scott also appear. Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, Barry and Hal, along with their more recognizable costumes, will not be public domain, but will at least have a version of them available. We also get Dr. Fate, Hawkman, Captain Marvel aka Shazam. Unfortunately, with all these heroes, the name Justice League will not be available until 2055. But you can use Justice Society. And if you didn't think that was enough, I've saved the best for last. DC's two most iconic villains, Lex Luthor and the Joker, will also become available this year. 2035 gives us a decent chunk of DC characters, and I think it's this year when things really start to open up, as it gives us a full trinity of heroes, a good amount of sidekicks and villains, as well as supporting heroes that can actually form a team. It is also worth noting that for Wonder Woman, much of her universe takes place in Greek mythology, which is already public domain. In 1936, things get even better. New heroes including Aquaman, Green Arrow, Hawkgirl, and Plastic Man join. Steve Trevor also gets to join Wonder Woman's supporting cast, along with major Batman villains Scarecrow and Penguin. From this point on, only a few characters pop up for the next few years. 2037, for instance, only has one notable face that I could find. Or two, I guess. Two-Face. But also, if you specifically want to use DC versions of Greek mythology, this year will give you their specific incarnations, with things such as the Amazons and Ares. 2038 gives us a few non-Batman villains to utilize, including Cheetah, Toyman, and Vandal Savage. But most importantly, in 2038, we get Alfred. 2039 gives us that guy whose name I don't want to pronounce, and Solomon Grundy, and 2040 gives us Black Adam. By 2040, you also have the rest of Superman's supporting cast, such as the Kents and his Kryptonian parents, but there's a lot of complicated stuff around Jor-El, specifically, that I don't think I'll get into here. Maybe that'll be a separate video in the future. 2041 was a pretty sparse year. The most notable character that I could find was Morgan Le Fay, and again, that's specifically DC's version of her, because she is technically already public domain. Honestly, this video could go on for a while, but I think I'll simply round off the first decade of public domain characters and stop there for now. 2042 gives us supporting heroes Black Canary, Huntress, and Wonder Girl. For villains, there's Star Sapphire, Gentleman Ghost, as well as the team, the Injustice Society. And finishing off the first decade of public domain characters, gives us Jervis Tetch, aka the Mad Hatter, or at least DC's version of him, because again, he is from Alice in Wonderland, and the Riddler. Unfortunately, we'll have to wait until the mid-2050s before getting a lot of the remaining missing core teams and characters of the universe, including Supergirl, Martian Manhunter, Sinestro, the Teen Titans, and the name Justice League. Darkseid is even later than all that. But honestly, I'm looking forward to the fact that so much of the DC universe will be ours to use however we wish in a somewhat reasonable and perceivable amount of time. I hope you found it interesting. This vid is kind of different than what I usually do, so do all that YouTube stuff if you want to see more. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do a part 2 of this, but this is definitely a topic that I would like to revisit. We'll see how things go. Take care, everybody.